My name is Commissioner Frank Avila. I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and our show is Avila Fine Arts Lovers. And today I have a gentleman by the name of Ralph Nader, and he wrote a book. It's called The 17th Tradition. And who is Ralph Nader? I'm going to have Ralph explain who is Ralph Nader.
Well, I've been a consumer advocate and going after the auto companies and other food, chemical, insurance, banking corporations to behave themselves better, to be fairer, not to rip people off or harm them through getting legislation and regulation, a little bit of law and order in Washington for big business. And
this book you wrote, 17 Tradition, is this part of what you've been practicing throughout your life? And you must have, because one way that a person acts or his attitude and behavior depends on his parents. Yeah. And I think this book reflects upon your parents.
Yeah, very much. The 17 traditions are the ways my parents raised us, 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in a small factory town in northwest Connecticut. And it is a tradition of listening, learning to listen, tradition of food, tradition of health, tradition of work, tradition of patriotism, tradition of civics. Patriotism is defined as improving your community. They never preferred one child over another. I call that tradition of sibling equality. And so there are a lot of stories that are very useful for young parents today who think that so much around them is out of control, out of their control, including their children.
Yes, I enjoyed reading your chapter on listening. There's one part in that chapter where it mentions that you and your mother took a plane ride, went to visit to another city, and for 5 hours, before the door closed, there was a young lad sitting in back of you, and he kept on talking. They closed the door, he kept on talking. And the plane ride was for about 4 or 5 hours, and he kept on talking all that time, except when he was eating, when they brought the meal along, and also when he went to the restroom. Every other time, he was talking. And when your mother and you got off the plane, your mother says, that young lad did not learn anything.
That's exactly true. She was big on listening. She was a woman of few words, actually, which is why we remember her few words. And she once got a dry dam built in Winsted to prevent the devastating floods that destroyed Main Street 3 times in 50 years from the Mad River, it was called, that went through town.
Yes, you know, I read that chapter also. And Senator Bush, I guess that was his name, Prescott Bush, and your mother knew some friends that knew him, and she asked that friend if they could ask Senator Bush if he could build that dam, and he responded back with a smile. And well, before that, and so nothing never happened. So she got invited to go to a cocktail party, some affair, and she met him, and there she shook his hand and would not let his hand go until he made a commitment.
To get the Corps of Engineers to build a dry dam, and it was built, and we've never had a flood since the devastating flood of 1955. Her lesson to us, when you get up close to a politician, and you shake his or her hand, and you want an answer, don't let go.
And you know, that's true, because if one wants something in life, he should never give up. I mean, if he fails, he should continue again. You know, like if you go to college, you flunk a course, or you flunk out of college, and never get depressed. Just get right back up and pass that course, just like your father did when they had that flood, and his restaurant got destroyed. I mean, his attitude and behavior was such that you learned on how he restored his restaurant again.
Yeah, he didn't regret. He didn't wallow in regret. He just said, okay, it's time to clean up now, and in the process we might beautify and improve Main Street. He was very positive that way with the other storekeepers in town. But his message to us years when we were young was, your best teacher is your last mistake. And that can be changed into, your best teacher is your last defeat. And you got to bounce back, and that's what they taught us to do in our civic challenges to improve our country.
Well, I think you were very fortunate that you had a good mother and father. And this book is about education and how to educate a family and educate the kids to learn from the past to learn what to do for the future. But you know, nowadays we have a lot of families that don't have a mother. They may have a father, or they may have a mother and don't have a father. And this book, just reading this book, I think it's excellent for a family that is in a situation like this to buy it and just read it and teach their kids on the 17 traditions. What do you feel about our today education that the teacher, the first teacher, are the parents?
Exactly. We said we were educated at home and instructed at school. We learned the facts, we learned geography, which is nice. We learned history, we learned math equations, but the knowledge and the judgment and the wisdom came very much from my mother and father. And so it was a nice compliment to the schools.
Yes, and you know, you have about 14 chapters in here, and it goes through, I think, every phase of one life as they're living. And you know, your chapters, I'm going to open up the book and just go through some of the chapters, because you start out with the tradition of listening, which is a very important thing, the tradition of the family table. Yes. The tradition of health, which is very important because we have to be healthy to live.
Us how to take care of our health when we were sick with childhood diseases, because that's when we were very attentive to her, you know, with chicken pox and measles and so forth. She had a real sense of timing there.
Yes, and the tradition of history, because you got to learn what was wrong and what was done wrong in history to go on forward.
Yeah, we'd come home at lunch from school and she'd give us the next chapter of a historical saga that she had memorized when she was a child.
And the tradition of scarcity, the tradition of sibling equality, which is very important nowadays.
Don't prefer one child over another.
And also the tradition of education and argument or discussion, debate.
Yeah, they never let us run away from an argument. They wanted to sharpen our mind that way.
Yes, I remember you came home from school one day, and your father, I think, said, "Did you learn, or did you independent thinking?"
Did you learn? What did you learn in school today, Ralph? Did you learn to believe, or did you learn to think? That made me think about all the times when we were just taught to memorize things, often that weren't so, about history or even in our own town. So that was a very valuable sentence.
Yes, you know, I would recommend this book to any family that wants to raise their siblings or their sons and daughters to buy it. It's called The 17th Tradition by Ralph Nader, and it's about his how his father and mother raised him, and how his father and mother, his grandfather and grandmother raised his father and mother, because he has a chapter in here on Proverbs. Where he mentions that in Benjamin Franklin, we can only maybe think of two proverbs. What was a penny earned is a penny saved, and what was the other proverb? I forgot. Or do you recall?
Well, like the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and we don't know many proverbs now. But in the old days, that's what they conveyed. That was the wisdom of the ages, and so my parents would discipline us first with Proverbs, just the right proverb.
And so I think this book is very important, because you're in the global economy, we're a smaller world, and we're all going to be together no matter where we live. We're in our own, you know, the world is going to be one local town. And that's why this book is very important to teach everyone the 17th tradition as Ralph Nader family taught him.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.